I'm picking him, but can we still be friends? You're my backup, she said. I completely erased her number and changed cities. She just found my LinkedIn. He dropped her after running up her credit cards. Caleb counting the minutes until tonight. Need you. That single text, glowing on Olivia's phone, didn't just break my world, it evaporated it. In that one instant, I realized everything I thought I had, everything I was about to be ripped away. It's unsettling how your brain archives the moment reality shatters. It wasn't loud. It was the perfect, heavy silence of our apartment and the faint vibration I felt through the worn couch as the message illuminated Olivia's screen. She'd left her phone on the sectional, stepping into the kitchen for a refill. We were watching an old action flick, but she'd been glued to that phone all night, sharing these private smiles with it. A secret, knowing little curve of her lips I hadn't genuinely seen directed at me for over 6 months. When it buzzed, that preview message was undeniable. The world instantly inverted. The movie soundtrack faded into an inaudible static, replaced by a deafening ringing in my ears. I could still hear the metallic echo of the spoon as she stirred her tea in the kitchen. 3 foundational years. 3 years where I had deliberately built my life around being her certainty, her unwavering support, her absolute emotional fortress. I was the one who managed her schedule, who made sure she ate nutritious food through every stressful work crisis. When she was sick, I slept on the cold, hard floor just to monitor her breathing. My entire identity was tied to her well-being. And in that moment, I became this fool. She walked back in, humming a cheerfully innocuous pop song. She picked up her phone. I watched her read the full message. There was a quick, involuntary tightening of her jawline, a flash of panic, before her practice mask slid back into place. I reached for the remote, pressed mute, and placed it down with an unnatural care. The resulting silence was a tangible weight in the room. "Who is Caleb, Olivia?" I asked. My voice felt like it belonged to a stranger, low, level, devoid of any discernible emotion. She tried to muster a breezy, casual laugh. It failed, coming out as a dry, scratchy noise. "What is with you?" "He's just the guy from the marketing team." "Why are you suddenly so suspicious?" I didn't move. I didn't get up. I didn't shout. I simply held her in my unyielding gaze. I didn't need to repeat the question. My quiet expectation was a physical force. She was clearly geared up for a dramatic fight, ready for my typical angry, jealous performance. She was completely unarmed against this null state of acceptance. The mask didn't just fall away, it disintegrated into fine dust. "Fine. You want the whole truth?" she snapped, standing abruptly and using the heavy sofa as a shield. "I met someone. It's him. It's Caleb." I remained seated, still. Inside, the sound was not one of tearing, but of a clean, precise implosion. It was the definitive click of a final latch opening. It wasn't intentional. It just happened, she hurried to explain, the words rushing out with a frenzied, almost liberated urgency. "He's just different, Ethan. He's electric. He has this vibrant, chaotic energy. He truly understands me. He makes me feel genuinely vital." I let the pathetic phrase, "he makes me feel alive," hover in the thick, still air between us. I let the sentiment spoil and decay. "I do see you," I countered, my tone unwavering. "I've spent the last 3 years seeing the real you every single day." "No, not that way," she said, waving her hand dismissively at me, at the coffee table, at the entire domestic familiarity of our life together. "Not this life. You and I are just comfortable now. We're essentially roommates with benefits. Caleb is an unpredictable adventure." I gave a slow, measured nod, as if she'd just provided the correct answer to a complicated riddle. I stood up. The motion was premeditated. It felt utterly final. "Okay," I confirmed. Her eyes snapped wide with sudden panic. Okay? That's all you have to say? Just. Okay? You deserve the adventure, I told her. You should be with him. I turned and walked directly toward our bedroom. I needed my travel bag. I needed to execute the plan that was already forming in the cool, logical wreckage of my mind. Wait, she cried, scrambling frantically after me. The confusion in her voice was acute. This was not the exit she had scripted. Ethan, we don't have to throw everything away. It doesn't have to be the end for us. My hand was already on the cold metal doorknob. I paused, but did not turn my body towards her. You're my anchor, my best friend, she pleaded, dropping her voice into that practiced, manipulative softness. You're my backup plan, my safety net. I can't imagine a world without you in it, just in a supportive role. Safety net. The word didn't even penetrate. It was the final, satisfying turn of the key in the last lock. Every single act of service, every late-night reassurance, it all collapsed and distilled into that single, demeaning label. I wasn't a partner. I was a form of insurance against the inevitable failure of her own poor judgment. I finally turned my head and looked at her, and I felt nothing at all. No residual love, no searing hate, no paralyzing pain. Just a vast, empty expanse of clarity. I didn't offer a response. I didn't waste a single word more. I opened the door, walked inside, and closed it behind me with a precise, echoing click. The silence that followed was the loudest statement I would ever make. It was the sound of my life finally beginning without her. The silence in the bedroom was total, a physical void where the comforting noise of our shared routine used to be. There was no impulse to rage or weep. There was only a clear, bullet-pointed list of tasks in my head. I became an efficient project manager overseeing the total shutdown of my former existence. I packed that same night, not in a tearful panic, but with a cold, surgical calm that was both alien and incredibly empowering. I gathered my clothes, my essential books, my personal laptop. I deliberately left behind the framed photo of us, smiling stupidly at the beach. I left the ridiculous ceramic mug she gifted me that said, "World's okay boyfriend." I left every shred of the comfortable, reliable man she thought she owned right there in that apartment like a husk. I didn't bother writing a note. Why? Have fun with your adventure would have been bitter. I'll miss you would have been a lie. My unyielding silence was the only communication she truly deserved. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, I called my manager while loading the final box into my trunk. David, it's Ethan. That open transfer position to the Seattle branch? Is the offer still on the table? It is, Ethan, he replied, sounding genuinely energized. But the start date is in 2 weeks. You'd need to move faster than light. Consider it done, I replied and disconnected the call. The ghosting was a clean cut, a surgical procedure. I didn't block her number immediately. I needed to see the precise trajectory of her expectation. The very first text came as I was merging onto the highway. Apartment key left inside the mailbox. Olivia, 9:14 a.m. Are you really just going to leave without talking this through? This is insane. I didn't reply. I watched the city skyline, the skyline of our life, shrink and disappear in my rearview mirror. Olivia, 12:30 p.m. This is so incredibly immature, Ethan. We're adults. We can be civilized about this. Where are you? I vividly imagined her pacing our living room, waiting for me to reverse course, so we could have her neatly packaged, civilized conversation where she kept both me and Caleb, her comfortable insurance and her thrilling adventure, in separate boxes. I pulled over abruptly at a rest stop and, with no hesitation, opened my phone and blocked her number across all platforms. Then I meticulously went through my social media, archiving years of photos, untagging, unfriending hundreds of mutual acquaintances. It wasn't a tearful, emotional purge. It was ruthless, efficient digital housekeeping. By the time I checked into a temporary corporate apartment in Seattle, a sterile, clean box that smelled only of bleach and a silent, boundless possibility, the operation was complete. Olivia had been professionally erased from my digital footprint. The only thing left was the quiet. And the quiet was not just glorious, it was absolute power. It was the first time in 3 years that my phone wasn't a constant source of low-grade anxiety and emotional surveillance. There was no one to report to. No emotional damage to manage. The silence wasn't lonely. It was deep, profound peace. I threw myself into the new high-pressure job, learned the intricate navigation of the new city, and built a structured routine that was entirely, fiercely my own. 6 weeks in, my new work phone buzzed with an unknown number. I knew with a cold, absolute certainty who was calling. The call came on a Tuesday evening just as I was unwrapping takeout sushi. The number had a familiar area code from my past. I deliberately let it ring twice, then 3 times, but a primal, almost scientific curiosity, the need to collect the final data point, made me answer. "Hello, Ethan." "Oh my God, you actually picked up." "It's Sophie." Sophie. Olivia's sharp-eyed, drama vulture best friend. The one who had always subtly championed the bad boys and treated my quiet stability as inherently boring. "Ethan, thank heaven. I honestly didn't know if this number would work. You have to come back. You were completely right about him. Olivia is a catastrophic mess." I didn't bother to confirm or deny that I'd been right about anything. I simply waited, letting the line breathe. Sophie, her voice dropped to a truly dramatic, conspiratorial whisper, as if she were sharing scandalous state secrets, not a friend's crisis. "That Caleb guy is an absolute waste of space. A complete, utterly parasitic user. He's ruining her, Ethan." My tone was flat, completely devoid of warmth or past recognition. "What is it you actually want, Sophie?" She was visibly thrown by my total lack of emotional engagement. I want you to call her. Talk to her." He quit his job literally a week after she moved him in. He claims he's focusing on his music career. He's been living in her apartment and she's paying for everything, every bill, every expense. She's supporting him like a child. I said nothing. The agonizing silence forced her to escalate. "Ethan, it's a disaster movie. She cries all the time now. You are her rock, her center, so stable. She sees it now. She made the biggest mistake of her life. Ethan, she needs you to forgive her." The word stable hung in the air like a desperate siren. No longer an insult, but a humiliating plea. They weren't asking for Ethan, the man. They wanted their predictable appliance back, the reliable, stable machine that quietly managed their finances and provided bottomless emotional support without ever having any messy needs of its own. "Sophie," I finally stated, my voice clinical and utterly devoid of pity. "That truly sounds like a very unfortunate problem for Olivia and Caleb to solve." "Ethan," she sputtered, shocked. "What?" "Ethan, be serious. She was your girlfriend for 3 years. Don't you feel any obligation? Aren't you even a little bit sorry for her?" This was the heart of it. They all needed my sympathy to validate their awful choices, to drag me back into the orbit of their exhausting drama. "Sophie, I have to go." I ended the call swiftly. I didn't slam the phone down in anger. I simply pressed the button and gently placed the phone on the clean kitchen counter. The profound quiet of the new apartment settled back around me, deeper and infinitely more satisfying than it had been before the interruption. The final, brutal piece of the karma puzzle clicked into place just a week later. I wasn't actively searching for dirt. I had meticulously muted all our old mutual contacts, but one specific friend, a guy I'd always respected, must have genuinely forgotten to exclude me from a public status update. It was a vague, frustrated public rant. Some people are just absolute trash. Using someone until they're financially bled dry, then literally ghosting. Hope that stupid studio equipment was worth obliterating someone's credit rating. You deadbeat. There were several supportive comments, but one stood up from another former mutual friend. I seriously can't believe Olivia let him max out her cards like that. She's financially ruined. Like actually ruined. So there it was. The grand adventure had a brutal, non-negotiable price tag, and it cost her everything she had. The safety net was long gone, and the free fall into reality had violently begun. I closed the app, felt a brief, hollow sense of finality, made myself a simple dinner, and didn't think about her again for an extended period. The complete, total unraveling was fully executed, and crucially, it had nothing at all to do with me. I was now merely a distant spectator, and a profoundly uninterested one at that. The serene peace of my new life was now an impenetrable fortress, and Olivia's subsequent attempts to breach it were nothing more than faint, distant noises against incredibly thick, solid walls. I had built something tangible and secure, a major promotion at work, a much nicer apartment with a stunning view of the Seattle city lights below, and a circle of new friends who knew me only as Ethan, the competent professional, never as Olivia's poor ex. I was happy, genuinely, uncomplicatedly, structurally happy. And that, I would eventually realize, was the one final outcome she had never, ever factored into her calculations. The very next attempt was a text from a totally unrecognized number, but the area code was a dead giveaway. Unknown number 11:23 p.m. Ethan, it's really me. I know you don't ever want to hear from me, but I truly can't stop thinking about you. I made the absolute biggest mistake of my entire life. I desperately miss you. Please. It was the textbook safety net play. The soft, gentle tug on the forgotten leash to see if I was still chained to the post. The entire message was exclusively centered on her, her mistakes, her feelings, her immense need. There was no "how are you doing?" No, "I hope you're settling in well." Just a selfish demand for my attention to cushion her own regret. I read it exactly once, felt a brief, cold flicker of nothingness, and immediately blocked the number. The entire process took less than 3 seconds. Weeks drifted by. The second, more desperate attempt was an email sent to my old personal address, which I still maintained for old subscriptions. The subject line was simply, "Please, Ethan, I'm in real trouble." The body read, "Caleb is completely gone. He took absolutely everything. He maxed out my credit cards on studio equipment and then just vanished into thin air. I'm going to lose my apartment. I have absolutely no one left. Ethan, you were the only truly good, reliable thing in my life. I'm so profoundly sorry. Please, I need you to save me." This was the full-blown emergency plea. It was utterly desperate, coldly laying out the clinical facts of her total ruin, trying to instinctively appeal to my former protector instinct. It was the same pathetic tactic as before, "I need you." But now the stakes were dramatically higher. She was no longer just lonely. She was actively drowning. And she still believed, deep down, with every fiber of her broken being, that it was my ingrained default job to jump back into the icy water and rescue her. I didn't reply to the email. I felt neither anger nor any satisfaction. I felt only a mild, clinical annoyance, like receiving a predictable spam email from a fictional prince. I marked the email as spam. The third, most aggressive attempt was a voicemail. She must have meticulously retrieved my new work number from the corporate directory. My office phone lit up with an extension I didn't recognize, and I deliberately let it roll to voicemail. An hour later, I pressed play. The voice on the recording wasn't just sad or pleading anymore. It was shrill, fractured, laced with tears of pure, unadulterated fury. "I cannot believe you are deliberately ignoring me after everything we had. 3 whole years, Ethan. I am actively drowning here. And you are just what? Too successful for me now? I see you updated your LinkedIn, Mr. Big Shot, senior project lead in the new city. You are a cold, heartless bastard. You're just sitting there in your perfect new life while I am completely falling apart. I hope you choke on your happiness. Click. I slowly stood up from my desk, walked to the break room, and poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. A small, cold smile actually touched my lips. The mask was entirely off. The woman who had so calmly requested a friendship was now screaming hateful insults because her former appliance was refusing to function. Her true colors, unbridled entitlement, corrosive blame, and pure venom, were finally on full, horrifying display. This was absolutely not about missing me. It was about her being utterly furious that I was no longer structurally present to catch her fall. A few days after the screaming voicemail, my direct office line rang again. I was deep in the middle of reviewing a critical project timeline. Ethan, I answered, project management. There was a shaky, ragged intake of breath on the other end. Ethan, it's Olivia. Her voice trembled with forced, desperate composure. Please, don't you dare hang up. My grip on the pen did not tighten. My heart rate didn't spike even a fraction. I felt a profound, almost clinical detachment. She had crossed the final, unforgivable line by directly invading my professional space. Olivia, my tone was polite, identical to the standard way I'd answer any unknown business caller. How exactly did you acquire this number? I called the main switchboard and lied. Said I was a client from your old branch. I absolutely had to talk to you. I am so completely lost without you. He utterly ruined me, Ethan. My life is in complete shambles. My credit is decimated. I am facing eviction. You are my rock, my only safety net. She was openly sobbing now, the words pouring out in a practiced, pathetic monologue. Ethan, I didn't permit her to finish. I spoke her name, my voice calm, firm, and entirely definitive. Olivia. The sobbing instantly stopped. A hopeful, wet whisper. Yes, Ethan? That net has been permanently cut. The line went silent. Dead. Olivia, I am not your rock. I am not your backup plan. I am someone who lives in Seattle with a career I value and a profound peace I haven't experienced in years. Your chaos is no longer, and will never be, my concern. Do not contact me again. I didn't wait for any form of reply. I didn't slam the phone down in an act of aggression. I simply pressed the release button, severing the connection with the same absolute finality I'd closed the bedroom door with all those months ago. It was undeniably over. A week later, a curious notification popped up on my screen while I was updating my professional portfolio. A new connection request on LinkedIn. Olivia, marketing coordinator at her company, with an accompanying message, Hi, Ethan. Hope you're well. Would be great to connect with you professionally. I stared at the screen. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. After the screaming voicemail, after the desperate, invasive calls, this was her final, most pathetic gambit, to pretend it was a professional outreach, to try and subtly sneak back into my orbit through the only institutional door she hadn't yet violently slammed shut. I did not accept the request. I did not decline the request. Declining would have been an action, a recognition of her continued existence. I simply left the request in a state of perpetual pending status, a fitting digital monument to her complete and utter irrelevance. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window of my apartment at the sparkling skyline of Seattle. I thought about the dinner plans I had scheduled that night with a smart, funny, and fiercely independent woman from my rock climbing gym. I thought about the successful, complex project my team had just flawlessly executed. I thought about the deep quiet of my home, a silence that was now full, rich, and warm. I felt nothing for Olivia. No hatred, no pity, no lingering affection, not even a sense of aggressive victory. She was a permanently closed chapter in a book I was no longer reading. The ultimate victory wasn't in rejecting her, but in the genuine, complete, and utterly liberating indifference that had taken firm root in the space she once occupied. She was gone, and I was finally, profoundly, and irrevocably free. What would you have done in my situation?